an independent, sort of a separate form of marble working with, as far as we can tell, specialists was sarcophagi. The most commonly produced sarcophagus in Aphrodisias, for example, was the garland sarcophagus. And we have virtually every state of unfinished. What we can presume, with Aphrodisias, it's not always absolutely clear because the quarry is is only half an hour's walk from the town. So it may be that work which would be done in the quarry in either Proconetius or Docimeum, where the sarcophagi were going to be shipped a long distance, may have been done down in the town. That is, the block may have been brought down to the town and work was done there. So what we have in the garland sarcophagus is, what we can see is the process is that they started with a cube. Then what they did is either they carved the lip, that is carving back and down so that there's a sort of a step at the very top, or they carved the interior. It looks like they may have carved the lip first, then they carved out the interior. And all the unfinished examples we have, the interior has been carved out. So that seems to have been something done very early on in the stage of work, which is fairly obvious because it lightens the weight for moving of it. Then the lower margin, there's a lower sort of, the base of the sarcophagus is inset slightly from the surface, so that what you have is something with an upper lip and a lower inset, and then this rough, and those are carved generally with a tooth chisel, these lips, but then a point chisel strip all the way around. Now then, with the garland sarcophagus, what they did is mark the sort of geometric form of the garland in either 3 or 2 wide, and then 2 on the end, and mark them as simple forms and carve into the background around those outlines. And we have one in which they have one part is carved in, and another part they have just cut the outline. They've just carved a line for the outline of what they're doing. And we have another one which is interesting, which viewed from the side, the front half, the garland is finished, and the back half, the garland is just they've just roughed out to the background the shape of the garland. So there's at least one case in which the geometric form is then finished and smoothed, and that is the garland sarcophagus. That is, they don't carve the flowers or the grape or the grapes or any of that, which are normally on the finished one. They just have the shapes for them, which they've then smoothed off, and that is the finished sarcophagus. Then we have another one in which you can see that they have they have carved the upper lid and the lower base, and they have the point chiseled area in between, and on the left-hand side they have outlined it and started to carve out the circle that has to be carved out for creating one of the basic shapes of the garland. They've just started, and you can see the outline on the right and below. Another one, you just have the outline. Now in Rome, we have a couple of examples. Well, we have more than a couple. We have at least 3 examples of unfinished carving of scenes. One, the lid of the sarcophagus, which is a hunting sarcophagus. On the left-hand side, we have the first stage of roughing out. On the right-hand side, we have the second stage of roughing out. And this is carving in which they are working their way slowly in, and the last thing that will be carved will be the background. So it is the opposite of the way the garland is done, where they carve through to the background before they carve the garlands. And these are 2 basically different ways of treating bas-relief, but also it would be of treating sculpture. And on this one, we can see that only those parts of, say, the hunting dogs or the men on horseback, only those parts which are on the frontal plane are being carved, and the rest of them is left point chiseling, and they will slowly work their way in until they get to this until at the final point they then carve the background. But it's important to note that this is a way of working in slowly. We don't know how much planning was done ahead of time. There is a repetition of elements in a sarcophagi which suggests that they had some sort of source to work from. It's interesting on a sarcophagus because it's the way they put it together so that you get different compositions, but you have elements in them which are repeated in other compositions.